Welcome to the 30th North Carolina Cereals Conference. I'm Christine Fischer, co-chair of the Conference Planning Committee, along with fellow co-chair Megan Kilb. We are so pleased to have so many in virtual attendance with us this year. We would like to provide a land acknowledgement. While the conference is virtual, we want to acknowledge that the NC Cereals Conference typically assembles our community within a network of historical and contemporary relationships with connections to Native American tribes, communities, parents, students, and alumni. We acknowledge that the land many of us occupy has long served as the site of meeting and exchange amongst a number of Indigenous peoples. North Carolina has been home to many Indigenous peoples at various points in time. Today, North Carolina recognizes 8 tribes: Cohari, Lumbee, Meherrin, Occaneechi-Saponi, Halawa-Saponi, Waccamaw-Siouan, Saponi, and the Eastern Band of Cherokee. We honor and respect the diverse Indigenous peoples connected to this territory on which we gather. We have attendees from all over North America and invite you to offer your own land acknowledgements in the chat throughout the opening session. This conference has been made possible by many people working collaboratively. First, thank you to the Conference Planning Committee members for doing such a wonderful job throughout the year. If you have any concern or issue with the conference, please notify a member of the Planning Committee by reaching out to us via a Zoom chat at any session. In particular, we are dedicated to providing a hassle-free conference experience as described in the North Carolina Cereals Conference Code of Conduct Statement posted on the conference website under Conference Info. If any issues arise, please notify a member of the Planning Committee via Zoom chat and we will address it. We also want to extend a thank you to all of the sponsors for this year's conference. Our sponsors this year are ACS Publications, Clarivate Analytics, DeGruyter, Duke University Press, EBSCO Information Services, Elsevier, Emerald Group Publishing, Harasowitz, IET, IOP Publishing, Oxford University Press, ProQuest, Sage Publications, Springer Nature, SpringShare, Wiley & Sons, and W.T. Cox Information Services. Each one of these sponsors helped us keep this conference affordable and available to attendees despite the pivot to an online event. Please attend one of the 2 sponsor lightning sessions held from 11:15 to 12:15 today to learn about their new initiatives, products, and other updates. You can see the conference agenda on the website for the list of vendors for each room, nccerealsconference.org/conference-agenda. Finally, to all our sponsors, thank you for your patience and flexibility this year, and we look forward to hopefully having an in-person conference in 2022. However, we should also take a moment to look on the sunny side of our having to hold a virtual conference this year, the first virtual conference in the 30-year history of NC Cereals. It's not quite the 30th anniversary conference that we planned for, but this format has enabled us to reach out to library vendors, employees, and students from more geographic locations than ever before. This year, we are so excited to welcome 158 attendees from Canada, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Tunisia. Among us today, we have students from not only library programs across the state of North Carolina, but across North America as well. Again, it's through the generosity of our sponsors that we are able to offer these students free registration for the conference. Everyone involved in the conference depends on feedback from the attendees. Shortly after the conference, you will receive an online evaluation form. Please remember to complete this form. Your comments help us build next year's program and make improvements to your conference experience. Just a few more housekeeping details. Conference receipts were emailed to whoever paid the registration fee. Session recordings and related materials will be available after the conference on the conference website. Again, this year, our speakers have the option to have an article or an account of their presentation appear in a special issue of Serials Review published by Taylor and Francis, highlighting this conference. We are thrilled to have this additional recognition and thank Maria Collins for making it possible. Again, this year we have a Twitter account and hope you will avail yourself of that opportunity. Tweets should be sent to @NC_serials and use hashtag NCSerials21. Finally, I'm pleased to recognize our founding sponsor, North Carolina Central University's School of Library and Information Sciences. At this time, I will invite Dr. John Gant, Dean of the school, to make a few remarks.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Christine, and good morning, everyone. It is a real privilege to be here today and to welcome you all to the 30th North Carolina Serials Conference. It's a great honor that we hold here at North Carolina Central at School of Library and Information Science to work in close collaboration with you all to be able to host this conference each year. Without a doubt, with the pandemic and all the other things that have been going on, I think this year is more important than ever. We're sorry that we were not able to get together in the spring last year, but it did give us a chance to, for the committee to work hard and to come up with this awesome virtual conference that we will experience today. And so I want to welcome you all from, as I said, all across North America, Tunisia, and so forth. Special welcome to all of our students from our library and information science programs that are here, and all of you that are here, and also very special welcome to all of our sponsors that have donated so generously to allow us to be able to move to this virtual platform and for us to have this experience today. And I also just want to take a minute and just take a pause here, and I want to share my screen, and I want to take a minute just to slow down and just highlight a special thanks for our planning committee. I am just immensely grateful to everybody that's on the committee. This was not an easy task to shift to virtual. There were a lot of questions that needed to be answered. There was a lot of uncertainty about this, but I do want to really slow down and acknowledge each of our planning committee members. And of course, Christine, who just did our welcome, and Megan Kilb, who's here. And also on our committee is Bethany Blankmeyer, Daniel Colbert-Lewis, Maria Collins, Netta Cox, Vernice Faison, Molly Hanson, Kate Hill, Trisha Hudson, Mandy Hurt, Jessica Janecki, Christina Manzella, Tessa Minshew, our own Anthony Philpott, Jinyang Shao, Evan Watson, and Villepin from Fayetteville State, and Abby Wicks. And again, I just want to thank you all for all of your hard work. I know this was a fast-moving year to really get the conference put together. A lot of moving parts, a lot of things to think through, and a step out in faith and saying, you know, how will this work when we do this in a virtual fashion? There was certainly uncertainty about when we could come together in person, and we know how the in-person is so important for building our and strengthening our community in the serials field. But we have faith and know that we can continue to do that even in this virtual environment. And next year, I hope that we will all be in a place where we can all come together again. But I just want to acknowledge and thank everybody for their effort. So this year is different in many ways. This year, when we look at what's been happening in the academic library space, there have been a tremendous amount of changes. And one thing that I'm very proud of and proud of you all is how you've demonstrated your resiliency, your ability to adapt to change. And because you all carry this deep-seated mission to want to serve all the information needs of your campuses and in the broader public. And it's not easy, because if you think about it this year, I think academic libraries and you all were needed in ways that you just didn't expect, in greater ways than you also didn't expect. Because the way I look at it, when I talk with my colleagues from around the country, the information needs of the folks that we're serving were at an all-time high. We know when we go back to our class, if we remember our days in our various academic training to bring us to this field, we learned a lot about uncertainty. And we know that one thing with uncertainty, the key thing you need is information. And then when you combine that with the spark of an idea that a person may have who may be trying to pivot their research to try and address questions around how do we, aspects of COVID-19 or health disparities that became very evident. Or you've got a spark where you're saying, how can I go out and help my neighbors? How can I help in my community, deal with certain issues? If I'm a researcher, how can I leverage my research to go out and really make an impact, out there for folks that are struggling, trying to figure out, how do I educate my children? How do I take care of the health of my family? What about my job? And other things like that. So that has been a calling that many have come to you with a high need for information. And in looking at some of the emerging research that's starting to come out, talking about how our academic libraries have responded, it's been amazing. We hear such great stories of how libraries have pivoted and to really help meet these information needs. We hear stories about, it's clear that the pandemic certainly reinforced and, I'd say put a lot of fuel to the fire to accelerate a lot of the trends that we've been seeing in our field for providing greater investments in digital resources and services and that type of thing. We've been riding this wave, but this year is certainly an inflection point where we see the tremendous need. I know even with our own small library here, all of our dollars went into expanding the number of digital resources because we realized that was the only way that we're going to be able to really reach our audience. And so this brought an awareness and I think an acceleration of those types of investments. But I think it's also brought a time where we had to think about how do we do this and do it well? Because at the end of the day, when the folks from your library, leadership from your library and yourself are meeting with leadership of campus, they're saying, how are these dollars going to make a difference? What can we do to make sure that we're really reaching everybody? And so I often think about this in a term, what I call the digital mismatch, right? We know the digital divide, the divide that might separate from those who have access to computers and so forth. But we're at an inflection point in that research field where folks are really trying to understand how do we really generate the outcomes that we want to see with these investments in these digital resources. And often there's a mismatch because for several different things. One, it's really hard to understand what our audience, what are the folks that we're trying to serve, what they really want, especially in a digital experience. And so, we have to think about what can we do to improve the overall user acceptance of these different types of tools? How do we make the tools easy for somebody to use, especially when they're in the flow of their research? A second part of this type of divide is that our research also is while it's often done, we're looking at researchers and students and faculty that are coming individually, but they're part of a broader community themselves. And so there's a greater need to figure out how do we connect not only the researcher to the right resources, but then to the right communities to help with that type of research and so forth. And so these are things that you all have been working very hard on to try and come up with solutions in that type of thing. It's very clear that you all have worked hard to pivot in short fashion with a lot of uncertainty, how to support remote research, remote teaching, and remote learning. Many of you may have experiences where this might have been the first time that some of the students actually earnestly showed up at your library through your portal, in most cases, really trying to find the right information for their work and that type of thing. Uh, and then there's the other side of this is that from our staff side, that's also an important part of this service process, right? It's not only folks are serving, but we can't forget ourselves, our team, you all. While we're trying to do our very best to help those that are coming to us for information, knowledge, and books and serials and things like that, you all also are living day to day with all of these changes. Questions of, will my library open in person? And the honest question that you ask yourself at 3 a.m. is, do I want to be there that day when the doors open again for that? Because are we really comfortable, in terms of our social distancing protections and things like that? And I know that we've, think about those kinds of things quite a bit, and it adds another layer of stress on us. And it adds a different kind of stress too, because we're often used to seeing the people we serve in person, and we don't see those folks coming through the doors. But yet, if we go and look electronically, we say, wait a second, they're here. They're here. We've seen such an uptick in the amount of traffic through our, websites and things like and portals to get to our information and so forth. And then unfortunately, on the personal side, some libraries have had to face cuts in personnel and so forth, because oftentimes there's a lack of understanding of the value added of personnel when you see the investments shift to the virtual space. And so we see libraries quickly redefining positions to really help support the experience for our patrons. So there's been a lot of shift that's been happening, and we've been really finding that academic libraries have found it that the key thing was shifting their collection development practices so that they can support folks no matter where they are and so forth. So in many ways, our roles are changing, where we're really becoming folks that not only are specialists in our field and in the knowledge that we help to curate and share and provide for folks that we serve, but we also need to think critically about that service experience that goes along with it, and to make it as easy as possible. And the greater that we can do that, the greater we can resolve this digital mismatch that we might have, where we want to serve as best we can, but we've got to do it through these digital tools, and we've got to fine tune those tools to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, what matters isn't the computer and the internet and things like that. What matters today is what's in your heart in terms of the great desire that you all have through your commitment in your library positions and your leadership positions to really help meet the information needs of every single person, however best you can. And I really appreciate, the sacrifice that you all have made to be able to do that. And I'm so optimistic about where we're headed. When I look at the lineup for today, there's so many great talks that are going to really help to bring greater light and share best practices and ideas from what you've been learning from this past year about how you're serving. We're seeing a shift and really complementarities between serials and open access, working hand in glove instead of being at opposite ends of things and trying to provide these information needs. We see how our sponsors and the companies that they represent are really helping to deliver and expand the types of services and products and access to all of the serials and so forth in a way that can really meet those information needs. We see that there's greater use and demonstration today of data and analytics, because if we can't see the person, we need some other way to know if things are working. And today we'll spotlight a lot of research that's really looking at the back-end analytics to really understand the profile of our users and what's working and what's not working as well. And then what's also exciting about today is that the sessions are set up so that we will continue to build and strengthen our community. There'll be great opportunity in each session for you all to ask questions, talk to each other. We're going to be doing it through chat, or you might get a chance to turn on your mic and camera and ask a question and things like that. And throughout the years, I've just loved the way our community is so supportive of each other. There's never a question that is asked that is not appropriate. It's always, folks are always affirming. It's supportive of each other. And so now, and we'll certainly continue to do that today as well. So with that, the committee asked if I'd be open, we could open it up for questions, Q&A, and we'd love to hear from you all as part of our community about what's on your mind about what's happened this last year with the pandemic and how it's impacted you at your library. And what are some things you want to share, or some questions we can answer that might be on your mind as well. So with that, I'll be happy to open it up for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Dean Gant. We don't have any questions in the chat right now, but the panelists have some questions for you if you don't mind.
Sure.
So we know that you're a really big believer in the community building potential of the face-to-face NC Serials Conference. And, like you and Christine said, this is kind of a different year for us, but as you just alluded to, there's a lot of community building potential in a digital world as well. Can you talk a little bit about what NC Central, the library school at NC Central, has done to try to build a digital community? And maybe just also a little bit about your thoughts about how we can go about building this digital community, because it looks like we're here for a little while, maybe not NC Serials in particular, but libraries in general. This is our world for just a little while. So how do we reach out in a Zoom world?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. And it's a question that we think a lot about. So yeah, and I'm a real, I believe that one thing that really helps to make, folks that are using our libraries or serving our libraries is to be able to build that community. And for me, it's really about how do we bring together people that have an interest around similar types of questions and they want answers to. So, for example, one of the really large things that I know our library has been really helping on is dealing with the response to the pandemic, for example. And we know that when we look across the state, that there's a lot of questions that are driving kind of the realization of hesitancy around the vaccines, a lot of questions about where do I get tested, what does it mean, how do I take care of my family, and things like that. So there have been a number of different things that I've seen that have been working. Frankly, it's what I call the low-hanging fruit ways of getting access. So like people have been setting up these Facebook pages where, I've seen libraries been setting up Facebook pages where they've got a librarian who will just open it up and say, and basically announce that they're there to answer questions. They'll bring in local health professionals and things like that. So I've seen that as being a kind of a simple way of doing it. And then there's other forms of social media where folks have been setting up different Q&A types of things with community members, and it's been highly effective. Another thing that I've been seeing is the academic libraries working with the and other community anchor institutions within their community. So I know here in Durham, for example, you had a lot of schools in the library system itself, churches, social service organizations, nonprofits that serve, all coming together as part of a community infrastructure of sort, right? A community support infrastructure. And then the library being part of that infrastructure. And then the library being part of saying, yeah, we can be a place to help provide resources so you can answer questions from the community, but also provide resources in terms of computer access. I know like our academic library went over the top to work with our computer services on campus to anybody who needed a computer from our campus was able to grab a computer. And I know they expanded that to be able to, if there were community members, to be able to make that happen and make that work, or to help bridge. We've got different organizations in our space in the Durham area that provide computers, provide access to the internet. And the library became a facilitating point to match up the needs for those computers and broadband access to the providers of that as well too. And that kind of thing has been helpful. And then thirdly, in the digital literacy space, it's a whole nother ball game if you're a student and can walk in and ask a librarian face-to-face a question about a paper. But now you've got to say, well, the resource is 100% online. Not only are the articles, but the data you're looking for and so forth is online. So another big thing I saw quite a bit was a lot of investment in training around digital literacy. And so you'd have virtual help sessions from like the reference desk to be able to be there and to help people not only find stuff, but also help with digital literacy so they could, run the, so one example, I've got some folks that are doing, working with community members looking at health disparities in the state. And there's a lot of good data that's out there. And I know that one of our reference librarians helped show not only what are these resources, but how do you actually go to the web page like it was a census site, and how do you grab that data, download it, throw it into a mapping tool, do some analysis with it, tell the story of that data. And I've seen a big investment in those types of things as well. And those things have really helped to improve that whole experience, as well as building a community. And so then the fourth thing I've seen then is teaching folks then how to share what they've learned with others. Teaching folks how to share what they've learned and share it with others. And that's the other part of the real community building that I've seen. I saw a group of students working on a project, and that was one point of emphasis. They made these mapping tools, again, looking at health disparities, but they invested probably about 40% of the screen on features that allowed the user to be able to share and tell the story easily in a lot of different other social media spaces. And I think that's another part of the whole community building that's important for us to be able to do. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So it kind of sounds like we can really look on the sunny side of all this, because we're taking the tools that we already had and we're expanding our reach with these new tools that we've gotten. So that is great. Yeah. It looks like, oh, sorry. Were you about to say something, Dean?
Oh, no, I was agreeing with you without it. Yeah.
So it looks like we only have a minute left in this session. Okay. So I'm afraid we don't have any other questions, which is sad because the panelists had a lot of other great ones, but we really appreciate you coming to speak to us today. Christine, was there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Dr. Gant, for your remarks, and thanks, Tessa, for moderating and sharing some the links and all that throughout the session. Thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you at concurrent session 1 at 10:15. Thanks.